Hello and welcome back to Football and Next Moneyball. For today's video, I'm going to start off with a quick review of my thoughts on the new dividend structure. Then I've gone with a top end player for today's pick of the day. So this is a slightly different type of player than I would usually recommend. But with the changes offering up some major increases in the dividend yield, I thought I should give an example of what I'll be looking for following these kind of changes. So yesterday the new dividend structure was announced with some massive rises in the payouts across the board. But there were two major changes, and that's to the star player categories and to the media categories. These changes will provide a big boost to all the players on the index, but the media players are the real winners in my eyes. Which makes sense when you consider what has happened to the values of the media king players over the last 10 months, with huge spikes at the end of last season and then steadily falling down to prices similar to what they were in January of this year. So the reason that I've said that the real winners are the media players, despite the huge increase to Starman winners on triple days, is that even the best players only win triple game days a few times a year, but they win media a lot more regularly. So a 50% increase in the value of those dividends is huge. Plus the media players actually tend to be the biggest performance buzz winners as well, and they post the highest peak scores, which is very important when you're trying to win the Starman, and we're going to look at some of those figures in a minute. For triple media days, the increase for first place has been 66%, which is huge for the summer transfer window. Although there's been a lot less triple media days this season now that the Euro qualifiers have been added as match days, one thing to consider is that the last round of Euro qualifiers is in November. So from then on, any international break is going to be all triple media days. I think that's one of the factors that has affected the decline in the media players, along with the fact that Messi, Neymar and Pogba have all missed a massive part of the season so far. Any new traders who will have joined since, say, midsummer will not have seen the huge effect that someone like Pogba winning the media days 5 days over an international break can have. With the increased yields from the stock split and now yesterday's review, this kind of chain of wins could be a huge return in terms of dividends, and it could have a massive effect on player price. So I think the combination of the increased dividends and the extra media days in the new year is going to be a huge benefit for the top end media players. So overall, I think it's a big improvement for the index as a whole and should help to continue the growth that we've seen in the last few months, or even for the last few years if you were lucky enough to be involved that long. One thing I'll say though is, although the platform growth's been explosive so far, I actually think that the rate of new sign-ups is still fairly low, or it is at least in the people I know. Everyone I talk to is still fairly wary of it, and most of the money seems to be coming from traders depositing more as they become convinced of the awesome potential of the platform and the entertainment you get from playing and being part of the FI community. So I think these kind of increases give all the traders more ammunition when they're talking to their friends about signing up, and that's a huge positive. So anyway, that was just a quick review of my thoughts on the dividend changes. I know a lot of people have been giving reviews and thoughts on it, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. And now I just want to give the usual reminder, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, then you can search for @IndexMoneyball. So for today's pick, we've gone for a player who you should all know, and that's Christian Eriksen. Eriksen's a 27-year-old Danish attacking midfielder who plays for Tottenham and he's captain of the national side. I'd say over the last few seasons, he's pushed himself into contention for being one of the top attacking mids in the world, really. And it's generated a lot of interest for his signature, with strong links to United and Real Madrid in the last few transfer windows. The first thing I look for when there's been a big boom in player prices following an announcement is at the top end of the index, is there any players who haven't seen a major increase? Then from those players, I try and find the ones who were undervalued prior to the announcement, and I usually narrow it down to one or two players that I'm going to buy. But in this case, Eriksen's been on my radar for a while, and when I saw that he'd only gained 0.85% yesterday, and then today he's actually dropped 1.7% to make it his overall 7-day gain of only 5% since the announcement got brought forward, I knew that this was going to be the player that I'd be doing for my pick of the day, and it was someone who I invested in pretty heavily straight away. So one of the main reasons for picking this player is his contract situation. As I said, there's been a lot of interest in signing Eriksen over the last few transfer windows, but now it looks as though he's either going to run down his contract or he's going to go for a cut price fee in January. So this situation's put all the top teams on alert, and I've seen links to Juventus, Bayern Munich and PSG in the last few days to go along with the United and Madrid links. I've been buying Eriksen for a while in anticipation of the media circus cranking up once it gets close to the January window. But with the dividend review, this pick just got a massive boost in his potential valuation and dividend earnings. As we'll see in a minute, he's a real double threat with all the speculation and his proven ability to compete for the PB. And one of the biggest drawbacks to buying him prior to the increase for me was the potential that he might move to Madrid or Bayern or Juventus and not be in England, so be out of the public eye for media potential. But now after the review, I think the chance of him playing in one of those teams would give him a much better chance of winning the triple PB and winning the Starman, or Gold Day PB should I say now. So that's going to compensate the downside to make this, in my eyes, the closest you can get to a sure profit on the index that I've seen for quite a while, probably since Pogba at the beginning of last season. Then another big factor is with United struggling and showing a lot of interest over the last 2 years, if Eriksen was to make the move there, then the potential return could be pretty big, as United players do have a premium valuation. And as Eriksen would be eligible to play in the Europa League but not in the Champions League if he was to move to one of the other big teams, there's a bigger chance that if he does move then he'll go to United in January. And if not, then that would mean that the media speculation could continue into the next transfer window in summer, which would be great for us as well. So it's kind of a win-win. The worst case scenario would be that if he gets purchased by someone like Madrid or Juventus or Bayern in January, which is unlikely because of the fact that he can't play in the Champions League. Those teams have got lots of players already. I think United are the ones who really need him. So now I've just come over to Football Index Edge to look at the master stats table, and I've organised all the players in max match day score, which is the real important thing for winning triple media star man, because the peak score is going to be more important now than the average base score, because one gold day star man is going to have a huge return for most players. So I've highlighted Eriksens Data here, and we can see that over the last 2.5 seasons he's got an average PB score of 110 with a peak score of 322, which came for Denmark this season in one of the international games. So it didn't have the 1.25 multiplier on it, which is important because some of the players above him did have the multiplier for Champions League games. So we can see that his match day score, even considering that fact, is still within probably the top 20 of the index. And these two figures are great for any player, considering that Eriksen could either move to a team where he's going to be surrounded by better players and playing in a weaker league, or he could move to United and be the main man for all the set pieces. He's currently second choice penalty taker behind Kane at Tottenham, and I think there's a good chance he would be on penalties at United because they've had some trouble this season. So there's a great potential for Eriksen to be a real PB monster with the new dividend payouts and his current entry price. And now I've just come over to FootMob to take a quick look at some of his stats, and you can see in the Premier League he's got 201 games, 50 goals and 61 assists, so that's a pretty good return over the 5-6 seasons that he's been in the Premier League now. And if we take a look over here at the last 3 or 4 seasons, you can see that his numbers have really improved. So he got 8 goals, 12 assists last season, 10 and 10 the season before, 8 and 15 assists the season before that, which is incredible really, and 6 and 13 in 2015-16. And then if we look at last season, you can see that he's got an average rating of 7.28. And the one stat on here that I look at a lot is the key passes. And in 73 passes, so that equated to 2.36 passes per 90 minutes. And that's a real good indicator of players who are going to be good for the PB. For my price analysis today, I went with 3 dividend scenario options that are usually used for older, more established players. There really are no comparable purchase options, as Eriksen's the second highest valued attacking midfielder in the world behind De Bruyne. And the only other players who come close of a similar age I use for my price target comparisons. Plus, with the contract expiration being a big factor for the purchase, the dividend yield could play a big part in our overall return, and it's more important than looking at alternate options, I think, for this one. So as I said, there wasn't much choice when it came to price target players of the same proven quality. So for my low target, I went for Luis Alberto. This isn't a bad comparison, as there's been a lot of speculation over Alberto moving to Barcelona in summer. He's in the Spanish team, so he's eligible for the Euro qualifiers, as is Eriksen with Denmark. Alberto's got a slightly better combined goal and assist record per 90 of 0.67 versus Eriksen's 0.65, but Alberto's played a lot less competitive minutes, almost half actually, at 14,000 versus Eriksen's 35,000, so Eriksen's figure's a lot more consistent and over a lot longer time, also in a tougher league really. When it comes to potential dividends for media though, I think Eriksen should be the clear winner in this one. So in my opinion, this is really a benchmark of where Eriksen should be sitting right now, if anything. For my mid price, I went for Coutinho. Coutinho's had a great start to the season at Bayern, and he's a player who's won a decent amount of media buzz in the past as well, with speculation about his future. So this is again a good comparison, but for other reasons. The downside to Coutinho is that he's a non-European player, and he also has a lower goal and assist record of 0.56. But I actually think Coutinho is going to see a big rise off the back of the dividend changes in the coming months as well, so I'm happy using him as a safe mid-range target price. Then for my high target, I went for one of the real darlings of the index recently, and that's Kevin De Bruyne. De Bruyne started the season in incredible form, and he's won a lot of dividends, causing a huge spike in his price. He's one of the big winners in terms of the price increase following the dividend announcement yesterday, and he's probably the best attacking midfielder in the world right now, with a superior goal and assist record to Eriksen at a pretty awesome 0.71 per 90. But he's a year older than Eriksen, which is the only minor drawback for him. He plays in arguably one of the best teams in the world, and he's based in the Premier League, which is good. Then they're in the Champions League, and they got a good chance of going deep in that. And he also is in a top international side with Belgium. So De Bruyne's definitely got some advantages over Eriksen right now. And this is somewhat of an ambitious top-end target, but there's a couple of scenarios which I think would get into this price. One being a move to United following a decent spell in media, and the other being a long drawn-out media frenzy through to the summer transfer window. So I'm happy to use De Bruyne as an ambitious benchmark at the top end. Moving on to the dividend scenarios for Eriksen, I went for just 2 matchday media buzz wins and no PB or IPD for scenario 1. This is an extremely conservative set of dividends, bearing everything we've discussed so far in mind, but I do like to have a real solid idea of the worst case scenario. Then for my second scenario, I went for no IPDs, a Silver Day top midfielder win at some point in the next year, and then 4 matchday media buzz wins. Again, I think this is fairly conservative considering the interest that Eriksen's been drawing. But then there is a chance that Pogba or Neymar could have long drawn out transfer sagas at the same time, which could affect his chances of winning the media buzz. Then for the final scenario, I went for 2 triple media day wins, 3 match day media wins, a Starman performance on a gold day, and 2 IPDs. With Eriksen having 7 potential fixtures for the IPDs as of today, including 2 games against Red Star Belgrade and an international fixture at home to Gibraltar, I think this is a fairly low estimate even for the IPDs. And that leaves us with our final target profit ranging from 24% for the low end of scenario 1 up to 160% for the high end of scenario 3. These are obviously great figures, and as usual, I've not factored in any of the general market growth in the prices of the comparable players. So with this in mind, this is a player I'm very optimistic about over the next 12 months. I'm looking forward to being able to come back and review this one at the end of the season and see if things went the way that I thought they were going to go. I know with my last pick where I had a bit of a theory about the player winning media was Willian, and that one's worked out really well for me, but he was a lot cheaper. That's all we've got for you on today's pick. Again, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment and subscribe. Also, if you know someone else who might like the video, then sharing with them would really help me out. There are links in the description for signing up to Football Index and Football Index Edge if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel for more strategy videos and the other picks of the day. Most picks are long-term holds with depressed prices for some reason or other, so often the picks can still offer the same value, if not better, a few weeks after. And the research methods and reasoning can help if you're new to the index and want to learn to analyse your own players. Thanks for watching. Good luck on the index.